An absolutely huge win for the Toronto Blue Jays, pushing them over 500. Bowden Francis, great start. Andrus Jimenez, I mean, what else could you ask for?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too. We've both been very active on there to start the year. As well, you can find us Instagram and TikTok with our Reels and TikToks coming out after every game. It is a ton of fun. We have fun doing those. You know, the reactions are great. It's first, it's immediate. And then this is the podcast is a little bit more of us dial back. Okay. You know, we get a couple hours or so to digest what we just watched, and then we chat about it. So go follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays. The Instagram also will have our it's like a post for the final score. It has the records of the final. It's got a whole bunch of stuff on there. So make sure you guys do go follow us on Instagram as well. Stay updated on all your Blue Jays info. And make sure if you haven't already subscribed here to YouTube and you're listening somewhere else, or you just haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that. It really does help us out. And if you guys keep coming back, you'll get your shorts, your live streams, your videos, your podcast, the whole ordeal. Lot to get into on today's game. I'm pretty happy. I love that. I enjoyed watching that baseball game. It was a lot of fun. We're gonna get into the Bowden Francis of it all. I know me and you were sort of snapping around just while the game was going on, and sort of chatting it up. A couple texts and stuff from Skylar Peters down Wilton with some of their thoughts as well on Bowden and on the rest of the game. But mostly, Carter, I think the biggest surprise this, at least for the start of the season, is Andres Jimenez. I mean, a guy that I think anybody in their right mind would have questioned the decision to put him at the 4 hole. But man, has it ever worked out?
Yeah, you can't complain about the success early on. I didn't think Andres Gimenez was going to be a great idea in the 4 hole, but man, early on, I'm glad that I am like crazy wrong right now. And I'm not saying Andres Gimenez is going to go out and hit 500 home runs this year, but we always talk about, you have a guy that is playing the best brand of baseball we've seen from Andres Gimenez probably since like those 2022 years that he was at the top of his baseball game. But early on in the season, if he's going to have that power, the Blue Jays are looking for that power. It's been a very pleasant surprise that Andres Gimenez has been absolutely raking and launching baseballs into orbit for the Toronto Blue Jays, especially when we haven't seen a home run from Bichette, Santander, or Vladimir yet. Definitely nice to see 3 from Andres Gimenez.
Yeah, and those ones will come, right? I think at the end of the day, we can't, you can't take too much away from no home runs from Santander, Vladdy, or Bo, because those will come. Bo's hitting the baseball very well, 0 for 4 in yesterday's game. So again, you don't love to see that. But for the most part, I mean, when Bichette was hitting balls, there was a lot of line drives. Like early in the first 5 games, a lot of Bichette's outs are just hard hit balls or whatever that he doesn't get all of, or that just go in the wrong spot. That happens. Vladdy, he's looked good. I just think he hasn't hit a home run yet. It's been 5 games. They're going to come. Santander hasn't looked great. I will say that that the pop hasn't really been there. But again, I think that's something that will come. It is Anthony Santander. So for the most part, with those 3 guys, those are my least worried about 3 guys on the team. Andres Jimenez, though, I mean, we got to talk about it. An absolutely stellar game. Last game going 2 for 2 with the home run. Also a walk in there as well. 3 runs as well. Just an all-out performance. I mean, you see how great he is defensively. He is so steady. And then to also get the power coming from his bat and the ability to drive in RBIs. I mean, I really, so far through 5 games, cannot ask any more of Andres Jimenez. He is doing everything and above that I would be hoping or wanting him to do.
Yeah, maybe the Toronto Blue Jays knew going back to the 2024 offseason, the first signing they make is Andres Gimenez. We weren't that excited about it because we're like, hey, is Andres Gimenez going to be that needle mover? Throughout the first 5 games, he has been that dude. And the best thing about Andres Gimenez is that he's so good defensively. You obviously know that. That's one thing you're going to be promised from Andres Gimenez. You're going to get that silky smooth defense. But when these players start getting hot offensively, they are so fun to watch. The Daulton Varsho last year kind of had a little bit of that experience. Not as hot start the 5 games, but it's a good start to 2024 season. Andrus Jimenez playing good defensively, stealing bases too. I think he was safe on the second stolen base attempt as well.
I think so
Had a
too.
very good swim move. I think he got his hand in the back of the second base before Luis Garcia got that tag down. But I think it was one of those that they called him out on the field, kind of inconclusive, not enough to overturn it. But he's doing it on the base paths. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting doubles. He's walking, got hit by a pitch as well. He's literally doing everything that you could possibly ask from any baseball player on a baseball field. And it's so fun watching a guy that, again, is like a 5-tool player that's doing just everything so well. Again, 5 games into the season, but you might as well enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, and you have to. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring for a guy like Andres Gimenez just because we don't know. We're unsure of what he can be this season. This has been a great glimpse, but what can he continue forward? That is something I'll be really keeping my eye on is how he does over the next week and a half of games. Of again, you're not asking him to hit 3 home runs every, in 5 games every time. But I think it's the production and the value you see within his bat that you really have to be keeping an eye out for because that's what you want to see moving forward. This is great. This is fantastic. As long as he keeps going, I'm going to be absolutely over the moon. And we will talk about Bowden Francis, Carter, but one thing I wanted to get into a little bit, just going away from Andres Gimenez, because I mean, I could sit here and be pumped up about Andres Gimenez all podcast if we want to, but I have to take a look at this team. That first game happens, and it is a kick in the pants to all of Blue Jays land, all of the fan base, because we expected more. But from then on out, Carter, I think I hope the worry is starting to go away that 12-2 loss isn't what this Toronto Blue Jays team is. And that's what I'm seeing. I think, I'm seeing people talk about it at work. I'm getting text messages. I'm seeing online. I think there's a little bit more hope now, especially after this last game. I think them being able to push over 500 is a sign of good things. Again, great game from Bowden. We will talk about that. But the great stuff you're seeing up and down this lineup. I mean, Alejandro Kirk, his at-bats yesterday, he was battling every at-bat, and that's what I love to see. Him defensively, he had a couple pass balls that I think were his fault. He just was jumping a little too quick or thinking he could catch the ball when he probably should just do what Alejandro Kirk is great at, and that's just getting down and blocking the ball. But for the most part, he's been excellent. The way he attacks runners on base. I know that there was a play, Bowden Francis threw a pitch, and Alejandro Kirk threw behind the batter to try to get the guy at 1. And Vladdy lays a nice tag, a little late, but it was a great throw, great play. It was snapping, it was quick, and that's what I want to see. All promising signs right now for Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk's look great. Just going back to around, like you said, reactions from the first game.
Yeah.
Who would have thought the first game of the season does not define your entire 162 games? And saying this, you can't get it. It's all of the early season is about is not getting to not going to overreaction or not having a big overreaction to specific things in a baseball season. Like the Andres Gimenez stuff, you can't go out and say, oh, this guy's going to hit 40 home runs a season. That's probably not realistic. You see Jose Berrios not had the greatest first start of the season. He's probably going to be okay. Look at Bichette. Probably not going to hit 450 the entire season. It's not overreacting to specific things for a ball club. But what things that we can take away is that Alejandro Kirk, just the quality of that pass, a lot more comfortable there. It looks a lot more comfortable behind the plate as well. Really just starting to quarterback the defense out there. You can really tell that he knows where everyone should be, knows how to attack different batters, and you can see that he is controlling the baseball game a little bit more and maybe taking over from some of these veteran pitchers before him being a younger player, obviously pitching with Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Chris Bassitt. These guys have been in the league for a long time, probably not trying to overstep too much. But now that he's been in the league, he's going to be a full-time catcher this season. You see those steps being taken from Alejandro Kirk. But I think it's, again, just too early to tell. You obviously want to get these wins early on in the season because the wins in March, the wins in April mean the exact same as the wins do in September. So I'm not really buying into this. It's still early. It's still early. You got to win baseball games at all times throughout the year. And it definitely helps when you win baseball games early on. I would say it gets harder to win baseball games as you get farther down the stretch. But from this baseball team, it's just don't overreact to the things that you're seeing very early on the season. there's games that are going to happen. The Jays are going to lose 10-0, 8-0. They're going to get blown out. They're not going to show up. And there's probably, hopefully, going to be some games that they absolutely kill baseball teams, and it's not very close in those baseball games. So that's where I'm at. I'm not going crazy overboard. This team's going to be unbelievable. Kind of where I thought there would be. There's still some holes in this team, but I have been surprised, and I have been excited about a lot of things I've seen on the baseball field as well.
I think the biggest thing for me is because we know how good this pitching staff can be. I think my biggest question was, what is this offense going to look like? And we haven't seen the home run power from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Anthony Santander yet, even. And I'm already way happier with how this offense looks this season than I was for all of last year. I got to give George Springer a shout out from every bad comment that I said during the offseason to him. He has started the season out great. Again, will he keep that up? We'll have to wait and see. But at least for right now, George Springer isn't a bum. And I really appreciate that from him.
See, I'm not going to apologize for anything I said this offseason because it's only 5 games in. I'm not going to overreact to anything here. It's great from what we've seen. I think him being outside of the one spot has helped him immensely this season. We saw 19 home runs from George Springer last year. If we can get that production from the 5-hole, I don't think that's going to necessarily be a bad thing. Obviously, you want some other underlying numbers from George Springer to kind of pick up as well. But yeah, we kind of talked off camera about my Andres Jimenez takes. I didn't think he'd be a good cleanup hitter. He's been very good. I've been wrong so far, but I've been wrong for the first 5 games. So I'm not gonna, again, I've been right about some things, been wrong about some things, but I'm not gonna go too crazy and say George Springer is all the way back. But damn, it hasn't been fun to watch again. George Springer in this small sample size actually be productive in the middle of the order.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 100% with you with the George Springer stuff. I'm not. I hope he can continue, and you know what? I shouldn't have been throwing.
You're sorry to interrupt, but the at-bats look just so much better early on than they did last year. So I'm not worried about the stats. I'm worried about that kind of thing. Like Alejandro Kirk doing the job 2 different times this game, going the other way when it's a pitch outside. George Springer not striking out, not swinging at just horrific balls in the dirt. It's just the quality of at-bat and just a lot of the things that these guys are doing, just little subtle changes in their game, whether it's the way the pitch moves, the way maybe they're a little more confident defensively. There's a bunch of different scenarios for different players, but those little trends that you're seeing with a lot of these players, it's a lot of a different feel early on than it was in 2024.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They started out 2024 so soft that it was like, oh no, we had a couple friends text us early into 2024 and say, it's over. This team is not climbing out of this hole. This season, it's different. Those same guys have contacted us and said, the season's over, blow it up. But I'm way more hopeful about this year. And not to say that I'm way more hopeful that they're going to win a World Series, but to enjoy good baseball and watch good baseball, I feel like we're going to get more of that this season. Definitely way more than in 2024. At least I hope so. Again, take everything with a grain of salt as of right now. Enjoy the games. This is the first time in almost probably 9 months that I've really enjoyed baseball. The Jays game comes on and I'm getting excited. You're sitting in the living room. I was sitting in my room. And I think at different points, me and you were both yelling back and forth just for absolutely no reason because we were having fun, enjoying baseball. I'm so pumped up, man. Just it being back, it being good baseball, or watchable baseball is fantastic. And we got to talk about Bowen Francis because it was at a pretty electric beginning to his 2025 as well. A couple of bullpen pieces that I want to go into just from today's game. I know you want to talk about Hoffman. We will save that. So we can see how he does in his next outing as well. But at least with Yimi, Garcia, Little, Sandlin, I want to talk about all those guys. We'll do that right after this short break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I always tell you guys how much I enjoy using FanDuel. I've been using it for the March Madness as well because it has been super exciting and I've been winning bets. So why would I not? And of course, FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I saw this one tall guy, didn't need a ladder or nothing. He just went up there and cut it right down. I don't know how tall that guy was. It was nuts. If you're going to bet anybody, bet that guy. Go find that clip. It's hilarious. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all year or all tournament long as well. MLB's here. I'm placing bets every day because I enjoy when the Blue Jays win. And then when I win money on top of that, it's even better. Make sure you guys head to FanDuel and check that out. So, Carter, I mean, let's just kick it off. I'll save the bullpen because for the back half of this segment because Bowden Francis, this was your guy for a long time, so I'll give you props on this one. I've loved Bowden Francis. I really like him, but you were like the Bowden Francis. This is my guy, and so I'll let you kick things off. How are you feeling after this performance? I think you can't be anything but ecstatic, right?
Oh, especially from what we saw last year. The biggest thing with Bowden Francis, we saw the first half of 2024, where he was probably not major league ready. A lot of people saying AAA guy, maybe for his entire career. A lot of people very down on Bowden Francis early on. And then we saw 2024, where if he has those type of numbers, we might have Bowden Francis in the Cy Young type of conversations, which I'm not saying Bowden Francis is a Cy Young. I also don't think he's a AAA caliber guy. I was hoping that we'd find Bowden Francis somewhere in the middle, but kind of picking up from what we saw last year. No hit bid through 5 1/3 innings. Bowden Francis, just early on in baseball games, he is so effective. Again, we were in different rooms watching the baseball game, but after the first inning, we both came together and said, oh my God, Bowden Francis' command is insane. Every single pitch was on the corner. If he's missing, it's great misses just off the plate. You don't have these pitches where it's 3 feet outside, 3 feet high, or right down the middle where these guys are absolutely crushing baseballs. Bowden Francis through the first 4 innings, absolutely ridiculous. Getting soft contact. There was a Josh Bell swing in this game where the ball was pretty much going to hit him, broke his bat. Just it's crazy things to see from Bowden Francis. But then we're starting to see this a common theme, unfortunately, where if Bowden Francis does have a no-hit bid throughout the 5th inning and farther, whether the 6th, 7th, or 8th, he's going to throw a meatball at some point in those next few innings, and it is going to get absolutely launched outside of the ballpark.
Yeah, man. And that it's a frustrating thing, but then it's also like, oh, also he just had 5 innings of no-hit baseball. So it's hard to complain when that does happen. But that goes to the third time through the order, right? These guys are seeing them, they're knowing, and so when the fastball's sitting at 91, it's a little bit easier to get on top of, right? And so I think that third time through the order, that's going to be where I think Alejandro Kirk is going to have to make different decisions about what pitches he throws when. And I think that's just the comfortability thing. And I think that will come. This is, again, game 1 for Bowden Francis. You brought up him painting corners and what me and you talked about after the first inning. And I don't know who to give credit for this to, if it is Alejandro Kirk and the way he called this game, or if it was Bowden Francis. But they noticed early on that they were getting pitches called outside a little bit, like a ball outside or a half ball outside, and they were getting those calls consistently. And so they were targeting the outside of that plate aggressively and getting the calls. So if it was Alejandro Kirk that was making those calls, that's where he wanted it, or they had discussions, I don't know. Either way, great job, well done of understanding the strike zone you're given that day. And that's such a huge piece as well. There'll be some days where, hey, this ump isn't giving you the calls on the inside, but maybe he might be giving you those on the outside. Maybe he's giving you them high, but he's not giving you them low. You have to understand that and be able to adjust how you're pitching to guys and know where you can steal strikes. And Bowden Francis did that so effectively today. And I will throw Alejandro Kirk in there because it was probably him calling that game. And great job noticing that early on, especially from him.
Yeah, the pitch sequencing was there. The game planning was fully there as well. One thing about the Washington Nationals, they have a few free swingers on that team. Josh Bell, obviously being one of those guys. Keibert Ruiz, when Brendan Little was in, he had 2 of the worst swings I've literally ever seen in my life. So that's another guy that's going to be pretty prone to swinging early on in the count. And then CJ Abrams at the top of that order, another guy a little bit more of a free swinger. So it's just knowing who you're facing as well. I think Bowden Francis did a very good job. If you're facing more of a guy like Nathaniel Lowe, who knows the zone a little bit better, obviously you're going to have more competitive pitches earlier on. But when you have a guy like Keibert Ruiz, who's going to swing at kind of anything within, 2 feet of the strike zone for the first pitch, that's where you can kind of, go to that, go to the slider, go to an off-speed pitch, the curveball, go to something that can keep him off balance. And I think he did that very well today. And one thing that we've noticed with Bowden Francis is kind of like I said, these no-hit bids. And we've seen the velocity go down throughout his starts. We've seen him kind of be at 92, 93, sometimes hitting 94. Did hit 94 in the 5th and 6th inning, but it wasn't consistent. But as we got through the game, you'd start seeing 92, you'd start seeing 91, you'd start seeing the velocity go down. And obviously, if you lose that velocity, that command has to be even sharper. You have to be a lot more precise. If you miss over the middle, a lot easier for hitters to do some damage. So there's a couple takeaways I do have from this. Is that one nice thing you see with Bowden Francis is that you don't see him reaching back for a whole lot more with that fastball, even though the velocity is going down. As soon as you start reaching back, the command starts going out the window. You start having some issues. God forbid there could be an injury there. You start going down with your mechanics. Not really going to be a good idea, especially when you're trying to, pitch 150 innings this year. You don't really want to reach back and, put yourself at risk in certain situations. And another thing with this is just Bowden Francis clearly just isn't very stretched out. It seems like every start that he goes, in the 5th or 6th inning, you start seeing that velo drop. And I did go and do a little bit of a background check to see how many innings Bowden Francis has thrown throughout his career. He threw 132.2 innings in AA and AAA in 2021, 99 innings pitched between AAA and the majors in AAA and AA in 2022. That's 99 innings pitched. In 2023, had only 66.1 innings pitched and 123 innings pitched in 2024. Bowden Francis now has inserted himself into this starting rotation. If we want him to make starts, usually most starting pitchers, if they're going to pitch the entire season, you want around 30 starts. If you're getting 30 starts from Bowden Francis, 5 innings apiece for those 30 starts, that's 150 innings right there. Bowden Francis hasn't thrown over 135 innings. There might be some issues down the road, but this all comes back to the same thing that you have Alek Manoah coming back later on. With Bowden Francis and Max Scherzer, you can just kind of get to August. You have Jake Bloss, who's another option there. If you even get to later on in the season, you do have some reinforcements coming in. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do balance this inning notion. They don't want to overthrow Bowden Francis early on. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with the situation.
Yeah, I'm interested with that too, and especially you brought up the Max Scherzer piece, and that's something else I sort of wanted to touch on a little bit. It doesn't look good. He did go to see a specialist, came back with the team last night's game. I don't think this is a short-term problem. I know we talked about it a little bit on yesterday's podcast and what the options are. It does seem in my head that it will be Easton Lucas, but the question now is they're debating on moving Gausman back a game and giving him some more time and putting Easton Lucas in for game 3 of this series against the Nationals.
Schneider said that it's plan A for Lucas to go for the last game of the National Series.
Yeah, that's right. So you're probably looking at him there. And that's something you have to be worried about too, because you don't want to have Yariel. You're going to have to burn bullpen guys in a game like that, but then also have to burn bullpen guys later on down the season when it's you Bowden Francis and Max Scherzer. You don't want to have to be taxing this bullpen that aggressively. So I think Bowden Francis will be able to stretch it out. Again, we saw him at the end of last year being able to go for longer. But it's all amount of pitches, pitch count, and how he can control that throughout his start. And obviously, he did a great job today. He's done a great job in the past because he attacks hitters. And I think that that's a great thing. And I think that shows the level of confidence that Bowden Francis has. And you get tattooed for 2 home runs, but you had a great start. There's amazing things to take away from this. So I would say don't be worried as of right now with Bowden Francis. I think you can push that off. If you can get 5-6 innings out of Bowden Francis every start, I think you're more than thrilled. So we'll have to see what happens there, see what happened with the Max Scherzer stuff. But Carter, just before we sort of move over into our third segment a little bit, the bullpen today, Nick Sandlin, it is a awesome addition to see. I've really liked him so far. I know me and you were both high on him coming in as the extra piece in that trade, the Andres Jimenez trade. I think he's been great. I think he's been good enough. Today was really good, or yesterday was a really good performance from him. And I'm sort of excited to see what he can bring in terms of production from this bullpen.
Yeah, it's going to be a guy that the Blue Jays are going to have to rely on for middle relief innings. The Blue Jays just love their splitter pitchers. It's fairly obvious from what it seems like. We got Kevin Gausman, you got Erik Swanson, you're adding Nick Sandlin kind of for field of the fire, a guy that throws a lot of splitters to lefties. So even though he is a right-handed pitcher, you could see him in a lot of left-handed scenarios. Obviously, you're going to rely on Brendan Little mostly, but from what we've seen, Richard Lovelady was on this team opening day. So clearly there is another need for a left-handed starter or a guy to attack left-handed pitching. So maybe that is Nick Sandlin. Going to be a guy that, again, they're going to have to rely on, especially with these injuries early on in the season and kind of this lack of these lower leverage guys. Nick Sandlin might have to be a guy kind of picks up the slack, goes in some kind of, goes out in the 5th inning when you don't necessarily want him to go out in the 5th inning, but you really don't have anyone else. I think Nick Sandlin going to be kind of this Swiss Army knife that we see Trevor Richards do a little bit last year, where maybe he's making some fit low leverage starts, some middle leverage starts, and maybe even going out in some 8th inning scenarios as well. So I think it's going to be an important year for a guy like Nick Sandlin, especially with this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen that does not have a lot of depth whatsoever.
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yimi Garcia, dude, he is a dog. He is an absolute dog. You have the 1-2 punch of Yimi Garcia and Jeff Hoffman. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm just over the moon. I love Yimi Garcia. I loved him last year. And what makes it even better is that he was bad when after he got traded, and then comes back to the Blue Jays and is good again. So it's just hilarious to see. Yimi Garcia loves Toronto. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, had an injury a little bit as well, but yeah, we'll go with the narrative that he just loves Toronto,
That's
did
right.
not want to be in Seattle whatsoever. For me, the issue is not at all in this back end of the bullpen. You get to the 8th inning, if it's Yimi Garcia, if it's Jeff Hoffman, I mean, you're laughing here. Like, we were okay with before the Jeff Hoffman signing when Jordan Romano went, we were okay with Yimi Garcia making those closing appearances. I wasn't a guy that was going to like love it necessarily, because I think he does fit way better in that 8th inning role. But I was going to be, if he was going out there, I was still confident you can get a win with Yimi Garcia, and we've seen it early on in the season. So I think, especially if you can get Erik Swanson back, the back end of this bullpen isn't necessarily going to be an issue. It's if the starter does have that blow up start, it's if you can't get innings from guys like Max Scherzer, Easton Lucas now, obviously with him being out, is where you have to kind of get guys to pitch the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings where you might have some issues. I think if you can get this team to the 7th inning and you still have like your Nick Sandlin, your Chad Green, your Swanson when he comes back, a lot of these guys available, and you got Yimi Garcia and Jeff Hoffman to close it out. I think if you can get there, this team is going to be in a spot where they can win a lot of baseball games, a lot of close baseball games this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big save year for not only Hoffman, but also Yimi Garcia. They're going to be, I think it's going to be really good because in certain games, they'll be able to save Hoffman and not have to go and throw him back out there, where they can rely on Yimi Garcia to close out a game and then go back to Hoffman the next day. I think, like I said, that 1-2 punch of having those guys, even if you want to split them days when you can, I think that's going to save a lot of their arm throughout the year and possibly make them even better moving forward into the late season.
Yeah, I think you don't want to throw your bullpen arms, or you don't want to overthrow your bullpen arms early on. We kind of saw with Erik Swanson a couple of years ago, where they were throwing him. I think he threw 50 innings in the first 75 games, then started to have some performance issues, some injuries started lurking up as well. So that's the biggest thing, is you don't want to overthrow these guys. And the fact that now you do have Yimi Garcia, you do have Jeff Hoffman. If you really wanted to, Chad Green last year was in situations where he was throwing in the 8th and 9th inning as well. So you have multiple options, and there's no reason to overthrow some of these guys if you don't necessarily have to. Obviously, it is game by game. Situations are different. You have a 5-2 game. If Yimi Garcia pitched the day before, like, I think I would have went Chad Green, because I think you're kind of okay with a 3-run game against the Washington Nationals. But if it's like a 5-4 game against the New York Yankees, that's where you definitely want Jeff Hoffman in that scenario, because you don't really have a lot of room for error. But it's definitely nice, at the back end of this bullpen, you have a lot of guys that you do trust, opposed to last year where you didn't really have anyone, to be honest, other than Yimi Garcia, and maybe throw Chad Green in there.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more to talk about, Carter. We want to tee up a very interesting week in fantasy. Me and Carter go head to head. We didn't break down what our teams are 100%, so let's see how they match up. But also, Carter, we do have to tee up today's game, I guess it would be. So we'll get into all of that right after this short break.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you'll need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order, and that is at supplyhouse.com.
All right, Carter, just before we get into the fantasy of it, we're going to make sure we get you guys all the info that you need. So let's start with the game today, Carter. 6:07 our time, I guess it'd be 7:07 Eastern for those of you in Toronto. Williams versus Berrios. This is a huge bounce back game for Jose Berrios. I am going to be locked into this one. I need to see the Jose Berrios that we all know and love back on the bump, getting the job done. And I think more than anybody, he wants that for himself. So very interesting game. I think could be one of the most important, I think, for Berrios' confidence moving forward.
I could not be less worried about Jose Berrios against the Washington Nationals today. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. You see, Jose Berrios, you've kind of seen before in 2022, didn't have a very good opening day start, was pretty good last season. But for a guy that is just the epitome of consistency, I think you can maybe argue Bassitt. Those guys are just innings eaters. They're consistent. They're the guys that are going to be around the 3.3 to 3.8 ERA guys. Inning eater's not going to strike out a whole lot of guys playing off that soft contact, but I think Jose Berrios is just primed for a bounce back. You got a guy with disgusting stuff, like I said before. Got a lot of guys with a free swinger mentality. CJ Abrams, Keibert Ruiz. If he's going against that Jose Berrios slurve, we might get some interesting clips from that. So I'm excited to see Jose Berrios. I think he is primed for a bounce back, and I think it's a game that they need to win because I think this is. I'm not going to say must win for game 6 of the season, but when you see the gauntlet of a schedule that I keep saying we're going to get into, eventually we will. We keep kind of pushing it to the wayside because there's so much to talk about early on in the season. But I think when you have the Washington Nationals with the gauntlet you have coming up, and especially with Mackenzie Gore coming off a 13 strikeout appearance, and don't really have a good feeling for that one. I'm not sure why. 13 strikeouts, that's probably why. But I think this is almost a game that they need to win if they want to have success early on in the season.
Yeah, you have to. You have to pick up on games like this, especially when, one of your top 2 starters are on the bump. So, and you might have Easton Lucas game 3. So, not a matchup you necessarily love. So, I think you need to take this one. Again, you're right. Not a must win, but definitely a want. And I guess every game is. So, what do I know? Let's get into the fantasy of it all, Carter, because it is a big week. It is a prop bet week. Me versus you in the Locked On Blue Jays Fantasy League. For those of you keeping up,
yeah, I gotta do this. Yeah, how did the first week go?
I have to make a public apology and a public statement here. Week 1 in the Locked On Blue Jays Fantasy League went just about as horrible as it could have gone.
It was pretty much like the Blue Jays home opener.
Yeah, it was. This was my Blue Jays home opener. That's what it is. The boys didn't show up. It was a short week, right? They weren't dialed right in. Beginning of the season. I expect great things from my team. We're already down to you, actually, so a little bit disappointing there. But we do have a side wager on this one, me and you. So we'll see. Hopefully my boys can pull it out. Do you want to go over your team? I can go over my team. I don't think we've actually let people know sort of what kind of squads we've built.
Yeah, I'll briefly go over it because I think the people in the league, they've already seen my team if they really wanted to. And if you're not in the league, I'm not sure how much you're actually going to care about who's on my fantasy team. That's why we left it for the third segment. People that are in the league are wondering kind of how our fantasy league is going. We figured that we would bring you guys this segment. But yeah, going over my team, I just wanted to give a quick shout out just to the two leading scorers in both divisions. Matthew Taps, obviously in my division, was in the live stream as well with me for a little bit there, so appreciate that. And then Joseph Gallo in Braden's division. Pretty good weeks from both of you guys. Obviously, nice to see yourself at the top of the leaderboard, even if it only is week 1. But my team, just the guys that I'm excited about, and I think I got pretty good value on. Mark Vientos, I think that is a guy that, again, could have a pretty good year, especially with more protection in that lineup. You got Juan Soto, another guy that's going to be on base. O'Neill Cruz got pretty late. Julio Rodriguez, Jackson Merrill, got Luis Robert Jr., hoping for a bounce back. Week 1, Aaron Judge, just the greatest thing to ever grace the earth, I guess. Like, a good thing he wasn't playing the Toronto Blue Jays. But, I mean, obviously it sucks that he's on the New York Yankees. But when they're hitting a million home runs, Aaron Judge obviously is going to be right in the middle of that. Not great pitching, but I do have Drew Rasmussen, who is slotted as a relief pitcher. Obviously, he's a starting pitcher. So I think that's going to help me, especially against you this week. But I thought it was interesting, too, because we were talking before. We're like, hey, we should probably figure out when our fantasy matchups are just in case. I checked Sunday night, and of course, yeah, I got Braden Moscow. Second week of the season. There's only 3 guys I do play twice. Braden is one of them. So it kind of got set up pretty well, I guess, to start the season. Quick flex for my team, though, before I throw it back over to you. First day of the week, I am up 35-10. Again, it is only the first day. A lot of things can happen, but I will take that early lead to start the week.
Yeah, it's not been good for me. It's not been pretty, but you can thank the commissioner Carter for setting up that we play twice. So you can give him props whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, I'll thank him for giving me 2 free wins on the year. Definitely going to go a long way.
All right, that's plenty. I got to shout out a couple of my guys. Tommy Edmonds has actually been okay for me. I thought that was a guy I was not sure about when drafting him, but I think he's going to turn out pretty good. Duran as well, Jaron Duran. I think that was a great move. I think I have him in both of our leagues. That our friends one as well. The guy that I was targeting, and actually surprised a little bit from Gavin Lux. I sort of didn't. He was just a pickup to pick somebody up and got him. He's been great. Haven't seen the explosion from any of my guys that I expected. Trey Turner is day to day, so I have him out of the lineup right now. Bryce Harper hasn't been great. And then, I mean, some other guys. I mean, Cal Raleig's just not done enough. And I have Mitch Garver as my DH, so that says a lot.
Yeah, that's not exactly who you want to slot at the DH. But I mean, like Bryce Harper has 5 hits. So that's just like he's not doing bad in real life. Obviously, not maybe what you
That's
want
right.
in fantasy. And
Yeah.
that's like a huge disparity, obviously, is when you're looking at fantasy, is that there's some guys that are unbelievable in fantasy and then like kind of just okay in real life. And then you have vice versa, the guys that are really good in fantasy or very good in real life, maybe it doesn't transfer over as well necessarily in fantasy. So that is a little bit of a disparity that you have to think about when you are drafting. And that's just kind of the fun of fantasy as well. So sometimes you could draft a guy that is unbelievable in real life, but then, you know, maybe he walked 4 guys in his appearance, and then that doesn't bode well necessarily for you in fantasy. So it's always a lot of fun, especially with a 20-man league now. We have to draft a lot of guys that, especially in the NL, where you like have these 7, 8, 9 guys in their order, that sometimes they do kind of fluctuate a little bit. Definitely a nice way to figure out on some of the less well-known guys, obviously, in the major leagues. Because as a Jays fan, like I'm not exactly inclined to what's going on with, you know, the 7, 8, 9 hitters in the Colorado Rockies order. So
Yeah. As always, guys, we appreciate you watching, tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure you guys follow us everywhere. Braden 5 Wasco, Carter first 2 on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. Head over there. Head over to the YouTube if you are listening on anywhere else that you get your podcast. Head over to that YouTube page. It really does make all the difference. We can see how many of you guys we're reaching on a day-to-day basis if you guys do hit that subscribe button. So again, we'll be back tomorrow. Big game today, and hopefully Jose Berrios can do the Jose Berrios thing and bounce back to the player we know he is.
I got one more thing. I don't think I said this at the start of the episode. I wanted to because it is a crazy stat. I'm going to leave it with you guys to end this episode. Toronto Blue Jays obviously over 500 this season. First time the Toronto Blue Jays are over 500 since April 24th of last year. So it's almost been a year since we have been over 500. Hopefully the trend continues today. Hopefully we can get 2 games above 500, be 4-2 at the end of the second game of the Washington National Series. But I guess I'll just end it off by saying thank you guys for watching. All the support recently has been appreciated, and we're not stopping. We'll be continuing to pump up the content as the season does progress. So we will talk to you guys tomorrow.